Hello and welcome to the very first Hilltop Views event. We're hosting a panel with all of the presidential and vice presidential candidates for this year's student government elections. There are 4 candidates, 2 for president, 2 for vice president. We have Jamie Cardenas, we have Carlos Martinez, we have Ana Lopez, and we have Ben Griffith. We're going to ask them some questions now, but before we get started, what type of student would you guys want to fill that 12th spot? Because the anticipation is building for me personally. I just want to know who the 12th disciple will be. What do you guys think?
I think that 12th person is someone who has a passion to serve the student body, someone who feels the calling, and you really wake up and you're like, hey, I want to do this for my students. I think I would be a great representative. And so I think anyone who has the passion to go out and apply.
You know who I'd like to see? I'd like to see a graduate student. I think that's a great part of campus that is not represented on our student government. I'd really like to see a graduate student.
All right. So SG obviously has undergone a lot of changes in the last few semesters. If you were elected into office, what would you keep the same about SGA and what would you change?
I think we need to restructure all of SGA internally. What Anna and I hope to do is to reflect back on what has worked this semester and previous semesters, and then really understand what went wrong and discuss with our cabinet and figure out how we can improve SGA.
So one of the changes that I'm thinking about is the accountability code that was abolished recently. So Anna, you were not a senator, so I can't really answer. But I know Carlos, you sponsored that bill, and
Actually,
Ben
sponsored the bill.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I
Yes.
mix you guys up all the time.
Sorry.
Ben sponsored the bill, and
Yeah.
Carlos, you voted for the bill. Jamie voted against it. How does that play out between the both of you?
So when I understood,
Yeah.
and you can correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong, is that there's already a goal of establishing an ethics code. So my understanding was that was going to come within a month or 2 months after we abolished. So that was my motivation, is that we're going to see something in a month or 2, and then we can agree, disagree, or even if we disagree, we can bring back the other accountability code, which is already written. So that was my understanding.
Okay. And Ben,
Yes.
why did you sponsor this bill?
Reflecting on what Carlos has talked about, I passed the accountability test the first time around when we took it in the fall. And even though I passed it, I felt, as I was taking the test and doing the various activities, that again, it wasn't very reflective. There's different levels of commitment that, I believe were, experienced through Senate. Obviously, there were some senators who weren't, doing their job to the fullest. And so in discussing with Faith, I think that this ethics code, which is being based on extensive research from other universities, needed to reflect more of the commitment aspect rather than focusing on various tasks and questions about the association.
The test I was kind of disappointed at how many senators didn't know the codes, and that's kind of something that took me off guard. I was just kind of like, I saw everyone studying them, and I'm like, well, shouldn't you know them, like not necessarily like by heart and by honor, but just like be at least familiarized with them. So that was kind of disappointed, but I also understand the perspective of kind of I don't know, having a different thing, which is like ethics, and holding that way accountable and more face to face. And I agree with Jamie. I don't know if I would have agreed if I didn't have something in my hands, because it's like agreeing blindly, and I don't agree with that as well. So I think I would have been abstained.
So I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's a new it's not a new policy, it's a very old policy, but it's being enforced all of a sudden where student employees can't work more than 20 hours. So which means a lot of students can have multiple on-campus jobs. And this especially is affecting RAs because their positions are considered 20 hours, but they're not paid bi-weekly or anything like that. So what do you guys think about that policy?
I think, it's St. Edward's policy, and so it's something that we have to go with, and though people may not necessarily agree with it, it's something that it's there, and there's no fighting. It's something that it's been set in place and just not necessarily pushed, but I think there's also purpose to it, because since the limit is set at 20 hours. That is St. Edward's policy, as opposed to coming from the Affordable Care Act. That is St. Edward's limits it at 20. And I think that's because at the university, they really want us to focus on being a student also. They want to make sure that our focus is in the right place, is in the right direction towards our studies. And yes, we may have jobs on campus and things like that, but ultimately we come to this university to be a student before anything else.
It's necessarily fair that students can't work more than 20 hours, and I completely agree with what Carlos is saying. We're here, we're going to school, and St. Edward's is known for being an education-focused campus. But what about those individuals that almost, for me, I pay for my own school. You know, my parents don't pay for that, and what if I would like to work more than 20 hours? What if I live on campus and I don't have a vehicle to go to another job to work those hours? So that's where my question is, and where my concern is, because what about those other students that we're not thinking about? If it has worked well in the past, what happened recently that it's changed, and what are we not being told, or are we not being told enough? Not saying that St. Edward's is doing something wrong, it's just I would like more information as to how they developed this conclusion.
So for many students, SGA kind of has this perception of just being a group of students that are just trying to add another line to the resume. How can you guys change this perception if you're elected and kind of get students more involved and feeling less like outsiders?
I think if elected, our administration we would like to humble ourselves as an administration and come down to really be with the students, because we are students and we are representatives of the students, so we should be out there with them. So again, as we were talking earlier, continuing with the Hot Seat Initiative and reaching out to them in different aspects, we would also like to see student government representatives in student orgs across campus, so that we can know explicitly what these areas need. And really, we want to go out towards them, because we can't expect them or just assume that they're going to automatically come to us. Especially, there's a lot of people who don't even know where student life is. And so I think we would like to humble the administration to that and really come down to the students, because we need to be with the people we represent. We are not above them, we are of them.
I agree completely with what Jamie is saying. One of our goals is to eliminate the stigma that SGA carries, and we're not an elitist group of students, even though we've been perceived that way. And some people within the organization and past administrative might have even seen themselves that way, but that is not what we represent as your potential president and vice president. We want to first establish a community within us as SGA, and then go outward and build a community within different organizations.
So I'm just asking for some honesty here. What do you guys think of Jonathan Cruz's administration? Do you think it was a success or a failure? And I know we had senators attempt to impeach him, and that didn't work out so well. What do you guys just think in general about his administration, and how do you think you will kind of follow suit or not follow suit?
I think communication lacked on all parts, and it's not just his fault. And I generally think he tried his best. Everyone is a leader, but not everyone is meant to lead. And I think that he generally did attempt his best, but I don't think he got that support of the senators. And coming in the second semester, I think once he lost the respect of his senators, it was very difficult to get that back. So any attempt that he has made, or is currently making, it's kind of rejected in a way, and that really frustrates me, because he is trying. But that's why we build a community within SGA first, and initially, before we go out there and try to save the world, we build that communication. Maybe that didn't have to go to a Senate meeting. Maybe we could have felt comfortable and be like, hey, Carlos, I really don't agree with what's going on here. We should talk about it.
And I think a lot of people just automatically had a negative attitude towards him, and for him, he tried. He made his effort, and he did the best that he could to try and come back. But just like Anna said, communication, which, like we were saying earlier, we disagree on something and we're going to talk about it. I think if something would have been said to him beforehand, I think we'd be having a whole nother story right now.
The whole process of impeachment, the way it was brought up, I didn't know it was going to happen until the day of, and so that's obviously a communication problem. and the reasoning behind it was a little unclear, and so, you know, trying to make a decision of that, you know, weight was really difficult. You know, the Senate met, I don't know how many, like 2 or 3 times at least, just to talk about, you know, what this would mean for campus.
Do you think Cruz's administration has been a success or a success? Do you think it's been a success? Yes and no.
I don't think it's that simple.
Yeah.
It really isn't. There's so many factors to consider. That SGA day that was part of his planning was a great success.
Yeah.
There are other parts that maybe lacked communication skills, and that maybe could have been improved. I don't really think, I could not comfortably give you a
Yeah.
yes or no answer.
Yeah.
Based off of the fall semester, no. Based off the spring semester, yes.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in and watching, and stay with Hilltop Views for more coverage at hilltopviewsonline.com.
Next meeting.
I hope it didn't